to Fantasy Turf War, the show where 64 teams go head to head to see who's the ultimate champion. I am your commissioner, Cory, and on this beautiful Friday, I hope you've had a good week. I hope you have a good weekend. Please stay safe. Hope your families are doing well. We have an interesting interview today with Cristina Gomez. Cristina Gomez is the host of Strange Paradigms, a YouTube channel, all kinds of content out there. I've been following her channel for quite a while now, and I love what she's putting out. And I think it's great content and very timely content with some of the things that we'll talk about in the interview and some of the things that I've gotten involved with personally and politically. And she's very gracious with her time, and I'm very grateful to have her in the league. And she has given me the most interesting answer as to what is the most unusual thing in the office question. So I like it. It was a good interview. She was actually, I don't know if I told her, but she was our first interview we did. So I was very, very nervous. Tried to be as prepared as I could, but she was a good sport about it. And so, Cristina, thank you for the time. And I hope you all enjoy this. And please stay safe this weekend. And we will see you guys later.
Cristina, good afternoon. How are you?
I'm great. How are you? Thank you so much for having me on. I'm pretty excited for this whole fantasy football thing and getting UFOs involved. It's pretty darn cool.
Yeah, this would be an interesting conversation for sure. I'm excited to learn a lot about your background and kind of what brought you into the fantasy turf war, and then we'll dive into some unknown realms here, and then we'll see how you're doing with the fantasy world. All right. I wanted to start with your background and what brought you to doing what you do with the UFO community, UAP community. So I saw that you had a bachelor's in communication, but what brought you into the live streaming world and the content creation world, where this is kind of the realm of subjects that you like to discover and discuss with folks?
Originally, I actually did not want to put my face online. I wanted to do everything behind the scenes, but it didn't really pan out that way. My channel originally was looking at UFO videos and then placing filters, enhancing them, placing them back online to allow people to make up their own minds on what they're seeing. But then I started getting like really hungry for knowledge and information that I thought I need to speak to people that know their stuff in this field, but I can't do it with no face. So I had to go ahead and start doing interviews to get a better understanding of what's really going on and understanding their background on certain information. I have it be when it refers to science, boots on the ground investigations, historical cases, and all of these different things. And then it kind of evolved into doing like several shows a week, all different types of topics referring to UFOs, the paranormal, cryptids, and really just everything strange and mysterious. That's what really catches my interest. And I think for a lot of people, we want to know the answers to like some really big mysterious questions, like is there life after death, is there life outside of planet Earth? And these kinds of questions really keep us hungry to move forward.
Yeah, that's awesome. Is there one particular event that kind of set you over the edge of I need to fully dive into this world of things to put your face out there and ask those questions and have the conversations with the people in the community? Or was it just a collective gathering of information that said, okay, it's time to go?
It was definitely more of a collective gathering because you can only get so much information from reading books, watching documentaries, or sending emails. But speaking to someone face to face, at least in this capacity, you are able to answer questions in real time and receive those answers. But the great thing about this topic is that our answers, our data, and our research are continuously changing. And that's what I think really catches my interest with this topic.
Very cool. Yeah, and I think it's interesting. The last few years has really become something on the forefront of pop culture and the media with everything last year with David Grush uh, coming through the congressional hearings, and hopefully we hear more. I think it's something that's coming up, and transparency within the government seems to be a topic that a lot of people are interested in. So hopefully we hear more of it. So I wanted to ask, I've been in this world of things and I have my beliefs. I've watched a lot of your content, and one of the things I've always been intrigued by is, the argument. And some folks are, so I think for the most part, we can all agree that there is something out there that we are having trouble identifying. So I think that has become clear. It's the what is it that everyone is having the debate about. So I would ask, what is the most compelling piece of evidence or testimony that you think is like, if there has to be one thing for it to stand on, what would that thing be? And then kind of walk me through that, and the
Well,
listeners, in case they might not be familiar with it.
yeah, absolutely. That's a really great question. And we can provide cases, witness testimonies, and those are nice, but it's not as captivating as David Grush giving his hearing last July with Ryan Graves and Dave Fravor, and they all have a military background. They all spoke under oath. It's all on record. And so this really stands out as a very historical moment in time when it comes to attempted UFO disclosure and transparency. And I'm using the word attempted here lightly. But the thing is that when you have people of those backgrounds, when it comes to Fravor and Graves, they have military background. They were pilots, worked for the Navy, and they had seen things with their own eyes, and they eventually spoke out about it years later. Fravor didn't had his sighting back in 2003 with the Tic Tac incident, and he didn't come out until a few years ago. Graves had his, I believe it was 2017, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it was around that time frame, and he just came out rather recently as well, going on public record. When we hear people with these types of credentials, it makes a difference more so than hearing a story from your great uncle Joe or something, which, yes, they can still be credible to you, because why would they lie to a family member? But these people have a lot more to lose when we're looking at Ryan Graves, David Fravor, David Grush. We could even bring in Lua Elizondo and so many others that have attempted to come forward and just highlight this topic to the government, to force them to push this topic more, and for the public to get more information on this. Where are our tax dollars going? Right? That's what we all want to know.
Yep. I think now more than ever, people are curious where their money is going these days. But I also agree that I think the most compelling piece of evidence or testimony that has taken place is you had three professionals swear under penalty of perjury in front of Congress that these are the things that they believe to be true. And if it were wrong, it should be a very simple, let's put them in jail because we can prove it, and should be the end of it. But it hasn't happened, and they haven't refuted the testimony, and they haven't provided counter evidence to their points. So it just makes you wonder, what is it? What is there to it, and where does it go from there? So that's awesome. I think that we are on the same page with a lot of our beliefs, and so I'm going to keep that rolling. And what I'd like to do now is something that I have not seen necessarily on your content so far. And I want to free realm anything as possible. How far do you think this goes? What do you think is actually true? What would you think is the most likely outcome? Or if you know more than you want to share, maybe what do you dream that the outcome is? I like to look at Ross Coulthart's explanation of always assuming blank up before cover up, which is more often than not. But then, do you believe that? Do you believe in Anunnaki? Do you believe in the pyramids, Alaska? How far does this go?
Well, to go back to the topic on disclosure, I think at the end of the day, disclosure will not come from the government, even though they're showing this kind of public interest. But in reality, it will come from the people, or even another mass sighting like the Phoenix Lights that took place back in 1997, or even the Colares, Brazil incident that took place back in 1977. These kinds of situations open people's eyes to a different kind of reality, because people mention when they have their own experience, nothing else can shake them. Of course, we want to hear the data. Of course, we want to get the science involved and the government involved. I get that. I do. But they're going to blanket it with a national security threat, talking about advanced technology that other countries can get their hands on and create another kind of war. That's the narrative. And so when we're looking at it from that perspective, I do not think anytime soon that disclosure will come from the government. Now, looking at these other realms of the strange and the mysterious, talking about the pyramids, the Anunnaki, and all these other possibilities, that's what they are. They are possibilities. And I'm going to be a little hypocritical here, and I want to say, well, bring in the science, bring in the data. We all want that, and that's what many of us need in order to continue moving forward. But at the same time, nothing is impossible. Everything is possible. And when we have our ancient ancestors tell us these stories talking about alien visitation, portals, abductions hundreds of years ago, and we're still talking about it today with similar instances, there has to be something to it. And with every myth and every legend, as they say, there is a nugget of truth there. So we cannot bring our bias, and we have to follow everything, look at everything with an open mind, but also be skeptical. We have to ask questions, but we can't say, nope, that's impossible, that's not true. We're not here to debunk. We're here to be skeptical, and those are two very separate things.
Okay, so now that we have your basis there, I think we can all agree that more knowledge is warranted, and asking those scientific questions are what is needed for the discussion. I think you're right. I think the disclosure will not come from the government first. I think they in most circumstances they would like to keep all the unknowns unknown for national security reasons, and I think the information will come from elsewhere. And so you already answered one of my next questions, in that how far off do you think we are? So knowing that the government may not be the vehicle from the information that the information comes by, where do you think the disclosure is going to come from first, and where do you when do you think that might happen? So do you think it'll be someone within our government that's like a whistleblower scenario, like David Grush? Or do you think it'll be a foreign country saying, look what we found? Where do you think that goes?
I think a good example of this actually would, and I'm talking about a TV show here, people are like, oh my gosh, TV show. But let me explain. The Secret of Skinwalker Ranch, because it's this location in Utah where you're having all of this strange stuff happen. UFOs, the paranormal, shadow entities, and all these very strange things. And it's getting scientific research, and it has an international audience to get people to ask questions. So we will receive disclosure from an effort like that. It's a private effort. We're not going to be getting it, well, private / public, because like we're paying for it, when we watch these shows, but we're not going to be getting it from the government. And in all reality, maybe we could get a mass sighting tomorrow. There, in the last few years since 2017, the ball has been rolling significantly for just the mere conversation when it refers to UFOs, people being more confident to talk out about it. You could talk to your grocery store clerk and say UFOs, and they'll be like, dude, yeah, did you hear about this on the news? Like, it's become that mainstream, and that is a good thing. That's a great thing, actually. So it's this like rolling effort of disclosure, and the more people that have their eyes open to this topic, that is when we're going to receive it. So it could be anywhere from tomorrow to 50 years from now. It's hard to give a timeline, but we hear people on the inside that say, we're going to get disclosure in the next 12 to 16 months. We've been saying that since 2001. Okay, every year is the year of disclosure. And so while I would love for that to be the case, of course, I'm optimistic, but there's still that skepticism there.
Yep, I agree. I do think, and it makes you wonder if there is a mass sighting tomorrow, would you believe it? And that's a conversation I've had with some family and friends of what is considered enough proof to think that there's more to it than some sort of conspiracy or cover up or anything like that. It's like, you have to answer that for yourself. I think is what do you need to see for it to be convincing enough to you to look into it further, and then ask the questions. But yeah. All right. So I think we've covered quite a bit of your background, but I want to get into some of the fun stuff now. And this is Fantasy Turf War, after all. And so fantasy football, I know that it is not the most difficult of games, but it is a little bit of a learning curve. So how many years have you been playing fantasy football?
You're putting me on the spot now. Okay, like I'm feeling like victimized. No, I'm kidding. But in all reality, I've never played fantasy football, but I'm excited to learn and to get out of my comfort zone to know how to play it.
Yeah, and so you've never played, so that is honestly that's your greatest advantage. Um, Anybody who's been playing fantasy football for years will tell you it's the people with no experience that end up winning. So I think you're in a really good spot. It's also very easy to learn. Once you've done it once, it's the easiest thing in the world to keep going. So I think you're in good company. You're also not the only person in the league who has never played before. There are several. So you're equally contending with all of them for most likely to win. But one thing I do have to elaborate. So I was born and raised in Chicago, Illinois. I was not raised a Bears fan. I was raised a Raiders fan. That's a whole another thing. But I did notice on your registration that you're a Packers fan. So can you elaborate where the loyalty comes from there?
There's no loyalty when it comes to these teams, and I this is gonna actually sound terrible. I shouldn't even. I'm gonna say it anyway. I've never really watched football, but I had a really good friend in my youth who was a huge Packers fan, and that was the only reason to why I put Packers on that sheet of paper.
Okay. I would rather take that explanation than you actually being a Packers fan. I think that's acceptable. So we're good there.
Okay, woo,
Yeah.
making me nervous over here.
And like I said, you're in good company. Plenty of people have never played fantasy football before. That's not necessarily all what we're about in Fantasy Turf War. So a lot of this is the network and the community building. So you're in great company there. There are lots of folks in the league that want to have discussions with you about certain topics. I'm sure you can exchange, some tidbits of UAP knowledge or maybe some who should I play this week knowledge. And I think you guys will have some good
That's
matches
a
there.
good trade off.
It's a good trade off. So now we have one more question that is part of our overdrive here, but I want to make sure. Am I pronouncing your team name properly? The Pudge I'm sorry. Can
That
you
was
can you
that was that
say?
was pretty close. That was pretty
Okay.
close. They're the Puckwudgies, and it's actually a cryptid from the Bridgewater Triangle. It's a little goblin, and I fell in love with this cryptid solely for the name, the Puckwudgies. I love it so much that I have Puck here that helps me for all of my shows. Well, almost all of my shows. He's got his own fan base, and they're like these little mischievous little critters that are really evil. Actually, when you think about it, they're pretty terrible. That in the Bridgewater Triangle in Massachusetts, if you kind of get on their turf, they'll push you off cliffs and they will shoot flaming bow and arrows at you. So be
All right.
careful.
That is a worthy fantasy football team name and mascot there. So I'll be rooting for you
Yeah.
there. All right. So the way we like to close out these interviews is to ask the same questions for everybody, see what their interest is. So the first one, how convenient. The first question is, do you believe in aliens?
Yes.
Succinct. I like it. All right. Second one, in your office, your studio, what is the most valuable possession or thoughtful possession you have, and what's the story behind it?
It's my mind, and there's no story behind it.
Okay. That's I like that one. All right. And then if you had one thing to say to the world, you have 30 seconds to talk to the entire world over Neuralink, 5G, whatever it may be, carrier pigeons if we're going back there. What's your message to the world? What do you want people to know?
Never be scared to ask questions. Always be curious, but always be skeptical. Someone can give you an answer, but it doesn't mean that it's right. And when they don't allow you to ask questions, there's something to it there. You better be pretty weary on that. So even though you might feel a little nervous asking questions, keep moving forward because it's going to help you in the long run.
Perfect answer. I think that's a great way to end it. Cristina, thank you so much for being on today. I'm so excited that we were able to talk, and hopefully we can continue discussions. Where can people find you at, and what are you working on?
You can find me on YouTube under Cristina Gomez, and there's no H in Cristina, or you can check out my website at strangeparadigms.com, and there you can find everything that you need, all of my social media and all of my shows right there.
Awesome. And we'll, of course, link all those things into the show notes. But again, thank you so much for coming on today. This was an awesome conversation, and I look forward to hearing from you soon. And best of luck in the league.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.